Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Following the first round of French local elections, the political mainstream is facing a mounting pressure from more radical contenders from both the left and the right, with both the far-right National Rally and the far-left France Unbowed delivering a formidable showing. How could this year's elections influence France's nationwide political scene and the 2027 presidential battle? Joining us here today is Emmanuel Dupuy, President of the Institute for European Perspective and Security Studies. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So, first of all, is it possible to make any generalized assessment concerning the political scene as such based on what we know so far from the local elections?
Well, first of all, local elections are, as they are, is said, local elections. So you're not electing a party; you are electing a mayor and, of course, a list of municipal advisors. So there would not be a national lecture that much on these elections because the personality of some mayors have overthrown the national tendency. Second of all, as you mentioned, we are now in a rally of two countering positions, extreme left and extreme right, which will nourish the debate till 2027. The center, or the, let's say, more soft policies have disappeared in these elections, and this is a tendency would go higher and stronger till we go to the presidential election in 2027. Let's not forget that the municipal elections prepare another election in September, which is the senatorial elections, confirming the fact that on this perspective,
And we're discussing French presidential elections there. We have briefly lost contact with our guest, which we should be restoring shortly. So, a brief recap of what's going on. France is going into a two-stage local election. The first round took place this weekend, with the second one scheduled for the 22nd of March. What is at stake there is obviously the leadership in all major cities, so the mayors as well as other local positions. That being said, there is also the question of the overall national political scene, because we have the dynamic of mainstream parties such as the socialists and the conservatives facing off against more radical parties, the far-right National Rally as well as the far-left France Unbound. Now, what we have so far is results for a number of cities. In some of them, it will be necessary to do a runoff vote. For Paris, for example, we have election results coming in, which indicate a fairly confident win for the socialists, with Emmanuel Dupuy actually taking 38% of votes. Even actually his supporters were quite surprised at these results, followed by a candidate of Les Républicains, the Republican Party, at 25.5%. Now, we should be getting back to our guest right now. With our connection restored, we can resume our discussion. So now, you said that this is mostly about local issues, about local candidates. Does the same thing also apply to coalitions? Because some parties said, well, we're not going to be cooperating with certain other parties. Like the socialists don't really want to be seen walking hand in hand with France Unbowed. But does it mean that local activists and leaders will heed such calls?
Well, I'm sorry for the loss of connection. I also wanted to finish on the fact that this election are preparing the senatorial election in September. And last but not least, there is a very precise mapping of the political elections, which can be taken out of last night's vote. You have on one side, in very urban, municipal, a sort of anchoring of leftists or extreme leftists, and on the other hand, in other cities than the big cities, a very conservative vote, which is fueling the extreme right, and this is precisely the case with Marseille that you're showing on this picture. So, what about coalitions? I think again, it depends on the personality. There is obviously in Paris, in Lyon, in Marseille, the will not to liaise between the Socialist parties, the Greens, and the left LFI, France Insoumise, the Insoumission Party, but in other cities, in smaller cities where the mediatization is weaker, I think, which is not the case. There will be a sort of extreme Republican front in front of extreme right. Now, the question is not whether or not there can be cooperation between social democrats and extreme leftists, but is and will there be a union of the right between traditional liberal conservative party, LR, and the extreme right. And that is the issue which will fuel the next months till 2027.
So what about President Emmanuel Macron and his supporters? How did they do in these elections in general? Does it show any sort of lasting tendencies that we could also use perhaps to try and speculate what's going to happen in 2027?
Oh, let's make it clear. They have totally collapsed. That was already the case for the previous elections, the snap elections, and the previous legislative elections in 2020 and in 2022 and 2024. Emmanuel Macron's political party does not exist anymore. It was in all of the cases in coalition. There was almost no cases of a Macron candidate going alone. He was sustained by the Republican Party and sometimes with centrist other parties. So Emmanuel Macron's political testimony or a legacy has vanished, and it's not new. This was already the case during the last snap elections. Now, what is also important, is to say that a certain number of Macron's political sustainers have gone back to their initial parties. Some have rejoined the Socialist Party, some have come back to the Republican Party.
So you've mentioned before that the more traditional, more restrained political narratives are being pushed out of the picture in favor of what the more radical parties are saying. Does this mean that the political discourse itself is going to become more radical as traditional parties will try to catch up with the far right and far left contenders? And also, what does it tell us about the upcoming presidential elections? Do we already have any sort of contenders who might reliably be considered as being the likely forerunners?
Well, as of today, the two forerunners would be the Insoumission Party on one side and the National Rally on the other. Mathematics, arithmetics is a philosophy, is a science which is very secure, and as of today, there is not any other outcome. Now, when it comes to the political traditional discourse, I would say it in the other way. I think both parties, the Insoumission Party on one side and the National Rally, will not radicalize their narrative. They will try to soften their narrative to try and find the political voices, the political legitimacy that they are lacking in order to go to the second round of the presidential election in 2027. There will be on the Republican Party a certain number of political sustainers of the Union of the Right, and therefore giving the National Rally an opportunity to try to liberalize its economical discourse, try to be less radical when it comes to its foreign policy, and try to be more Eurocentric, less than Eurosceptic. On the other hand, with the leftist party, of course, Jean-Luc Mélenchon is accused of anti-Semitism, of anti-Zionism, of being very lacking, very elusive when it comes to denounce terrorist organization. There will be, I think, a certain number of softening position. Of course, this was said by Raphael Glucksmann, one of the leaders of the Socialist Party, saying that it's not possible today to have an agreement with the Insoumission Party, although if its narrative is changing, that could change the course of the situation.
Now, a quick question at the intersection of domestic and foreign policy. In many elections, many countries, there's this lingering shadow of Donald Trump and his presence. Now, right now, Donald Trump is actually demanding NATO countries to help out with the blockade of the Hormuz Strait. Do you think that this is going to elicit any sort of response from President Macron? And also, how will it actually impact the French political scene?
Well, Emmanuel Macron has been very clear, as well as all of the European leaders, as well as Japan, as well as other, and even Great Britain, saying that saying no to what Donald Trump is asking, because Donald Trump is asking us to be involved in a war that we did not want, that we did not start, and for which we were not asked any option or that we were not informed before it happened. The liberation of the Hormuz Strait is important for the European Union, and this is why Emmanuel Macron and European leaders, there will be a meeting today, by the way, in Brussels, speaking about the reinforcement of the Aspides mission, which has fully fulfilled its mission in the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb for the Red Sea. So European leadership and Emmanuel Macron are saying to Donald Trump, we do not want to participate in your operation, but we do want to have the full-fledged possibility, the possibility to concentrate and assure the liberation, the transit, the free transit of the Hormuz Strait, but again on a European-based mission with a United Nations mandate and with a clear-cut consensual position in the European Union.
Emmanuel Dupuy was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.